Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Single No More Online Summit. We are here to give you the tools to feel confident that you can not only meet, but keep your Mr. Right this year. And I say feel confident because it is in your power. We are going to empower you today to realize and understand that this is all within your control, which to me is so super exciting because we don't have to wait on anybody. It is all on us. And I'm so excited about my guest today, Miss Kira Sabin. Yes, I said it right. Whew, even though we just did it like a minute ago. And I love how she describes herself. She actually considers herself one part unicorn.
I do.
Careful. And one part sweary fairy godmother. So we're probably going to drop some swear words today. If you're not okay with that, you may leave now. I'm just joking. It's going to be hilarious. So just join in. And she's basically devoting herself to helping you realize that you are not fucked up, broken, or unlovable, and that you're actually pretty freaking awesome. And we all know this, and we want to help you realize this as well. You are worthy of happiness, love, and a mind-blowing, beautiful relationship where you wake up feeling loved every day. Now, what I love is that she is a positive psychology coach, and I cannot wait to hear more about this because this is probably the first positive psychology coach we've had on here that I've probably even spoken to, even though I've probably read a million books about it. I just absolutely love it. And a certified coach. And she's been doing this for over 10 years, helped tons of people. And I think what I love about her too is that she really wants to have the bigger conversations that we're not having about love and relationships. So we're going to get into all this today. Welcome, welcome. So happy to have you.
I'm so happy to be here, Andrea. Thank you for having me.
Gosh. First of all, maybe let's talk about that positive psychology side of it. How did you get into it? How did this all come about? And how is it so important for you when you're helping people in this area of love and relationships?
So I have a great friend. His name is Rob Mack.
Mm-hmm.
He actually does lots of coaching and stuff in LA, and you sometimes see him on TV, but he was doing a podcast with me. And we were just talking about, happiness and expectations and stuff. And he said, most people don't know this, but only 10% of anything external causes happiness. Right. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? He's like, well, actually, like your health, your weight, your car, your job, your relationships, and he just started saying anything external outside of you, it only affects 10% of how happy you are. And my mind was blown, right? Like I was just like, are you kidding me? Because of course we're all living in this, once you get that great job, once you get married, once you have whatever it is, and it's a lot, right? This is all based in science. I'm all about like, how do we look at things and back it up with real facts, right? And so when he told me that, I was like, I gotta learn more about this. And that just started a journey, that started a certification. Yeah, and I love it. I think it's one of the things that's really missing, just in our conversation about life, let alone love.
Yeah, I think that was one of my biggest learnings as well, was how much fulfillment I could give myself from myself just by loving myself. And I love that term self-love, but when I heard self-love, I think that was more around self-care, just being, look after yourself. But this is really like loving yourself. Like you walk out in that world and you just know, I am the shit. Like I am the bomb. And I just got goosebumps in my legs just by saying that. Like, isn't that awesome? Like
it is.
How great is that? And then you bring that person to the world. It's great. And again, if you don't have to put your, feeling of worth or happiness or how your day goes on anything else external, and which is also empowering because we can't control anything externally, it's amazing, right?
Changes everything. It changes everything because unfortunately it puts it back on us, which is a little daunting, right? Because when I tell people and we start this work, they're like, oh crap, so this is me. right? So this is me. Oh shit, I have to figure this out, right? Because your whole life you're either blaming or we're victims of like, this happened to me and this person was a jerk and that guy's an asshole. And when you actually look at what you allow, what you tolerate, how you put yourself out to the world, your self-worth, when you start realizing that this is all internal work, like you said, that should be exciting, right? Like that should, because that means we have control over so much more than we think we have control over. But it's also a little daunting because you're like, okay, where do I start? And just, I think that positive psychology is just filled in the pieces for me that I didn't have before in coaching.
Mm.
And I think it's brilliant.
Yeah. And I think you really hit the nail on the head that great, empowering that it's on us, but oh shit, it's on us. And that means
Yeah,
I have to change. And I definitely learned that on one of the books I read about when you blame, it's so you don't take responsibility for anything,
absolutely.
And now I'm like going around, and anytime somebody says something, I'm like, yeah, that's just that's blame. That's because they don't want to take responsibility. I could see it so clearly now, and it can happen so often. So yeah, really confronting, because that's definitely the journey that I went through on my 4-year courtship to finally engagement. But the last straw was us breaking up again and being like, I don't want this to keep happening. What is going on? Took time for myself and realized I was hard on myself.
Mhm.
So clearly I was probably hard on him. Clearly a perfectionist. And that gets nobody anywhere.
Nobody.
No.
Nobody.
I was like looking across the room. I saw somebody get called out as a perfectionist. I went, ooh, that's not a good place to be. And then I went, oh
Oh
my,
man, I
and
have
I
women.
wasn't, and I
Yeah.
wasn't in that area that she was. She was in like work, and I'm thinking, nah, progress is progress, not perfection. So I'm like, yeah, no, I don't need it to be perfect, but in the area of the relationship, for some reason, I believe that's the one that was supposed to be perfect. I don't know. Was it the media? Probably. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, I think that we are taught shitty, terrible things every single day
Mm-hmm.
from TV and movies and books and magazines and everything. We are constantly fed. I mean, this is going to sound very like conspiracy theory, but constantly fed just kind of lies that aren't helping us get into good relationships.
Right.
And I mean, that's why, like, I love that you're doing this. This is why, like, I do the work that I do, because I'm like, we just like need to start having better conversations,
Mm-hmm.
right? No more fucking tips and tricks. I don't give a shit what you text them. Do you like yourself? Do do you like yourself enough to be vulnerable, to ask for what you need, to set boundaries, all of it? Because if you don't, you're going to end up right back here, or you're going to be worse. You're going to be in a relationship totally unhappy, which I think is way worse than being single.
Yeah.
Because if there's nothing lonelier than being in an unhealthy or unhappy relationship.
Yeah, my biggest thing was, okay, if we can start good relationships from the beginning that are going to lead to long-lasting, healthy relationships, that's going to ideally bring that divorce rate down, which we know is so high right now. And I think you and I can see why. We're like, well, yeah, no one is really solid in themselves. So yeah, how are we going to know how to have a relationship? And you're very upfront about that on a lot of your content, is that these are skills that a lot of people don't have and we're not taught. And that's okay, because none of us did, right? Like you
Right.
went through the work, I went through the work. Can you tell us some of the work that you had to go through to make that journey from dating shit show, single and frustrated, to now very happily married in a great relationship and able to help others?
Yeah, I mean, I really believe that we're not broken. It's just that we literally haven't been given the skills to do this. Let alone, most of us are so busy working and everything else, we don't have much self-awareness.
Mm.
So like, how are you going to teach somebody how to treat you if you don't freaking know yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that was probably the first thing that I had to do, was start going, some of this is my behavior, right? Some of this is not every guy just being a jerk to me. Some of this is what I'm tolerating. Some of this is like, I could actually smell an emotionally unavailable guy across the room, and I would be making out with him by the end of the night. It's like it's a gift. And the thing is like, my work started with, I am so unhappy, something has to change. And I actually remember there was a moment, I worked on cruise ships for 5 years actually, and there was a moment on cruise ship where I'd been kind of dating this guy, and it just went bad. And there's just a moment where finally I said, Kira, no more, right? Like, you cannot take any of this anymore, right? And the beating myself up after it would go bad and all of the things. And really, I was just picking people who could not show up for me. And then I would be so mad at myself, like, well, what am I doing wrong? What am I saying wrong? How do I do this differently so that they'll stay? But I was choosing people who had no idea how to be great for me, let alone themselves. So,
Why were you choosing those people? Like when you said you could smell that emotionally unavailable guy, but you were attracted to him, now knowing what you were, why were you attracted to that?
Andrea, I could fix them. Are you kidding? I'm Bob the Builder. I could fix them. I can love them more than they love themselves. I could show them how great they could be. One of my favorite podcasts that I've ever done is called Why Dating for Potential Makes You an Asshole, right? Because I believe that everybody gets to be loved for exactly where they're at. And if they're in a place where they kind of can't be loved, then that's where they have to work on themselves. But, so I could fix them. That's what I believed. And I didn't believe myself that I was worthy of somebody who didn't need fixing. Right. So if
Yeah.
I got in there and used my really smart brain and my charming personality and loved them to pieces, they would then stay with me forever. Right. They would love me and stay with me forever because I saw them for who they were. That is super fucking flawed thinking. Right. And it just left me alone every single time, beating myself up. And so, at one point I just said something has to change. And soon after I started I got my coaching certification, which I just wish everybody had a coaching certification because it's such a good awareness process, right? You learn so much about yourself in that. So that was the start. And then I read, I've been like obsessed with understanding how this got so fucked up and how we fix it. Meaning the dating culture, the relationship culture.
Well, that's a great segue. How did it get so fucked up? Like, let's
talk about this, Andrea. I hope you're ready for a 7-hour interview. So that,
right.
The thing is that what I like to remind people is actually this has never not been fucked up. Right? So 40 years ago, we all just played different roles. Doesn't mean it wasn't fucked up. It was just a different kind of fucked up, right? Women couldn't work. You know what I mean? 100 years ago, your only way to survive as a woman was to get married, unless you came from a rich family and then you could be an old maid. But, that was really not an option for most people. You worked in like a department store so you could meet a man, right? You did this or that so you could meet a man. Because women were not paid enough to be able to live by themselves. And then you go 150 years or more than that, my great-great-grandmother did not give a shit if her husband loved her. They were just trying to make sure their kids didn't die of croup. You know what I mean? And like that they had food on the table and firewood, right? Like, they didn't have the option to think about love. They didn't have the option to think about, am I happy? So the thing is that we are now in a place in an awareness in 2020 where we can start having not only relationships, but I'm really big on partnerships, right? My husband is my partner, hands down. Like we, chip in together for this life that we love. And we both just, take care of each other and are great together. But like, this has never not been like this. It's just been evolving and changing. And we're finally at a place where we can get partnerships and then nobody knows how to get them. Right? They're just like, yes, I want to be able to do this. And I want my partner to be able to do this, but I don't know enough about myself. Right. And I don't know much about them. And I'm scared to ask them questions. And then they don't know what they're doing. And then we just like, make out and have sex until it's either until we either get married and then possibly divorce when we realize that we don't know them or we maybe don't even like them. Like we right now base long-term relationships and even children on somebody that like makes us hot. Andrea, this is so fucked up if you think about it, right? Like that we are picking the father of our children because they make us feel good for a few months. I mean, like if you really think about it, the whole thing is ludicrous. Like for some reason, when we start smelling or getting a sniff of love, we put all common sense out the window. Like, I mean, I'm just regularly having conversations with my clients. One of them was like, I've met this great man. He's a single dad. He lives in a small town in the Northeast. She lived in a major city. She's like, we're in love. And I'm like, so you're going to become a stepmom in a small town in the Northeast? And she's like, oh, well, I don't know about that. I'm like, no, you literally, we don't put the next steps together, right? We're just like, this feels really good right now. So I'm just going to go with it. But one of the things that most people don't know is only about 10% of people can evolve past the power struggle phase. 10% of relationships. So even though our divorce rate is 50%, only 10% right now really like get to a real love phase.
So this power struggle phase, how would you define that a little bit more? So what that is?
Yeah. So there is one of the things I teach on is like the 5 stages of relationships. And the first one is obsessive love, right? We've all been in that place where you're like, I just need to be with you every single minute of the day. Like, like I'm just so excited. I want to know everything about you. Everything you do is cute, blah, 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 blah. Right. And that lasts for anywhere from 6 months to a year and a half. Right.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, most people are getting engaged in 6 months to a year and a half. Right. So like they aren't really out of the
Mm,
space that literally triggers like cocaine in your brain. Like
right.
it does.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so it triggers like cocaine in your brain. So you are like legitimately kind of addicted to them.
Yeah.
Right. So then what happens is when I love one of the people that I follow, he says, and then we sober up. Right.
Mhm.
Like, and then like, the
Yeah.
drugs are wearing off and we look at the person and we go, oh, huh. Oh, they do that. That's a little weird, right? Or wow, I really need to talk to them about something
Mhm.
and they're not really listening, right? So kind of all of these core things that we need for healthy relationships, we never build during the beginning because we're just so excited and we think this is such deep, beautiful love
Mm,
that it can conquer everything.
mm,
Yep, until you get to about 2 years and then you're like, oh, this is a really superhuman, flawed human like myself.
mm.
Right. And if you have not learned any skills on how to work with each other, you're fucked. I hate to say it like that. And then I think it's so crazy because people are like, gosh, Kira, and I'm sure they say the same thing to you. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, how much is your program? I'm like, what's more expensive? Couples therapy, right? Like having your marriage be hanging on and so much hurt and pain that you don't even sure if you can do it. I'm like, that's 10 times worse than try to like do some of the work up front,
Right. Right.
And so I'm sorry, what was your question? Did I
No, no,
answer
it was
it?
all, no, that's fine. It was all about the power struggle.
Oh yeah. So the second thing is the power struggle phase, right? You sober up. And a lot of people never get past it, right? Where you're constantly pushing and pulling, kind
Mm,
of testing people, and it's if we see it such as, ooh, ha, my husband or wife did something wrong. Look at I've got it on them for next time, right? Like that
mm,
kind of constant I'm right, they're wrong. If
mm,
you can't get past that, if you can't learn how to solve your problems, if you can't learn how to like talk shit through,
mm,
those things will come up again and again and again until you're either miserable or you leave or somebody cheats. That's what happens most of the time is they see something else that's shiny and makes them feel in the obsessive love phase. And then they
yeah.
say, this time it's it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that divorce rate for second marriages is 67% and divorce rate for third marriages is 73%. So clearly it's not you just didn't meet the right person.
Right.
It's a huge lack of awareness and skills.
Right. And like you were just saying about, okay, this person makes me feel this way, so I like it. And then therefore, even if that next shiny object, it's because I want to feel this way. And what we're also trying to say here is that you can feel how you want to feel and a lot more secure in yourself versus feeling like you need to get it from these outside places or another person. Yes, we get to feel beautiful and lovely in our relationship that we have, but it's not our worth. It's not completing us. It's not what I thought it was. It's crazy. And I love when you talk on your site about how great relationships don't fall out of the sky. And it's not something that it's like hiding from us. It's something we create. And that's, I think, a big language that we're all using these days about creating a relationship, not finding a relationship. Can you
Right.
talk to us a little bit more about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. I feel like this is my TED talk that's going to happen at some point about how we need to stop looking for love, right? Because we're kind of looking to find it and everything. And I'm like, it's not fucking hiding under a bushel, right? It's not hiding from you. There's no like Easter egg hunt here. So we need to stop looking for love and we need to start creating relationships. We need to start looking at that person, even in that obsessive love phase, as another flawed human that we have to get to know, that we need to like learn how to like love them, right? Because I talk a lot about like, how did you learn to love? It's probably different than everybody else. And
Mm,
if you don't know and you don't know how to teach somebody, then how do you get to feel loved? You
mm,
don't. So I mean, it's about really working with somebody and Danny and I are constantly tending to our relationship, constantly,
mm.
you
Yeah.
know, like if I'm having like right before we started, he was the one who set up this room for me, right? I've been working, I'm launching something new. He was like, okay, which lights do you want? Okay, do you need a snack? Okay. I mean, like he is not only like my partner Like in life, he's like my partner in like helping my business be successful. He is
Yeah.
my biggest cheerleader.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, I do feel like, and it's because we've learned how to love each other. We've learned how to take care of each other. If I'm having a bad day or he's having a bad day, the first thing we say to each other is, okay, how can I be great for you? What do you need right now? You know, do you need a coffee? Do you need a hug? You know, do you need to like sit down and talk it out for a little bit? We are constantly tending to this relationship because it's the most special relationship in my life. So why wouldn't I want to use every skill, every piece of knowledge I have to make it great? And I do. I wake up loved absolutely for myself every single day. Right? Like I never thought I could be this happy. I didn't think I would get married. I wasn't actually even that interested in it. Like I started this because I just said, this is kind of fucked up. I think people need help with it, but I'm okay if it's not my thing. I was okay. Like, you know, I traveled a lot and things like that. And then I met Danny and I was like, this guy's special. So I'm going to like see what we can create. And we've created something pretty fucking great.
And I have heard, and I think that the new story that we need to share out there, rather than that it should be a fairy tale, it should be perfect from the start, you should all get, you know, all these feelings are an indicator of love, is that with the right person, it gets better over time.
Absolutely.
Right?
I feel like more love for him every single day because we learn how to like take care of each other better and better every single day. Right. And show up for each other every single day. Right. Like it's supposed to, it's the thing is the obsessive love phase, it's supposed to happen. That's like human. That's like what they're triggering for like the species to continue.
Right.
That's not what love is. And then the minute that we think that that's the only thing love is when we're screwing ourselves, because we will then keep looking and looking and looking. And in fact, people who believe, I love facts. Do we know this? People who believe in love at first sight are 3 times more apt to cheat. Because, you know, once they're like, oh my God, this feels great. And once that starts to fall away, which it does, it's just going to.
Yeah.
You know, they don't know how to move on to the next step. So they find the next person who makes them feel like they've just, you know, found love at first sight.
Yeah, I love it. Now, you've kind of, so Dan is your husband, you've kind of touched on it, but please share your story with us about when you found love, because we all believe that it needs to be this perfect situation or this perfect man. But it's not always the case. I got engaged at 38. I think deep down, I didn't even think, or like, I kind of was like, oh yeah, I'll be with somebody, but just never really thought it was possible. And and then I started to get really nervous though. When you get in your 30s, you're like, this isn't going to happen. Oh,
I just didn't, I mean, you know, honestly, for a long time, I was like the most happy single person I've ever met. Right. Like I've built a pretty good life and friendships and, you know, for myself. And I loved this business and talking about it. But so my father got sick and my father passed now, but about, it's 2020. So in 2014, he became sick with a very terrible illness. And I moved home to help my mom during that time because I had my own business at that point. So my hometown I'm from a small town in Wisconsin. It's 4,997 people. Everywhere you go, especially Walmart, is like a high school reunion you didn't want to go to. I'm not a fan of the place. Like it was pretty great as a child, but I don't feel a lot of ties to there anymore. So being in my hometown in my 40s, so I was like 41 years old, you know, was not awesome. Right. So I'm just like, I'm going to hunker down. I'm going to work on my business. I'm going to, you know, help with my dad, all this shit. And I ended up meeting Danny. So at 41 years old in my hometown at the bowling alley, right? My friend was like, hey, I'd love to see you. Do you want to go to the bowling alley? Because it's literally one of the only places that's open past like 8 o'clock. And I was like, I'm not fucking going bowling. You cannot make me go bowling. And my friend was like, well, listen, if you want to see me and meet my new girlfriend, you're going to go bowling. And then Danny also was his friend that came along.
Wow.
And I mean, I had zero interest, right? Like my life was kind of a shit show with my dad and everything else at the time. But, you know, by the time that we were bowling and I'd had quite a bit of Sambuca. And
I love Sambuca.
I do too. You know, by that point, I was a little bit like, he's cute. Yeah. that would maybe be a terrible idea. I'm pretty like lonely and like unhappy in the situation that I'm living in right now. So we made out that night by a dumpster behind the bowling alley in my small town. And I should mention that I don't know if it's aware or not, but I'm a plus size woman. So like, I know a lot of my clients come to me like, if I just can lose this weight, or if I'm like, listen, we get to be loved exactly where we are.
Right.
And so whenever somebody's like, it's because of my location, I'm like, eh. They're like, it's because of my weight. I'm like, eh. So I was in one of the toughest places in my life, but I was still able to show up. And it started there. And I actually didn't think it was going to go anywhere. And then I was just like, he's kind of great. And every time I set a boundary, he respects it. And every time I ask a question, he answers it. And you know what I mean? And so we just started building something. And now we've moved like 5 times. We may move again soon. And we have a dog and a cat, and we foster kittens. I mean, I think we sound really boring right now, but yeah, we got married in 2018, and it's amazing. It's amazing to have a partner.
Yeah. I think
life is fucking hard, man. Can we just talk about life is hard?
Yeah. One of my close girlfriends, she just, has gotten into a very good relationship. I think it's been about 6 months now. And she's really struggling to understand that you don't have to do it all on your own.
Right.
She could not let go of that. Certain times she'd be like, I can do this. I'm like, yeah, but why don't you let him do something every now and then? Like, just sometimes it makes him feel good, like just let him do it.
And it's not only that, I'm a really big proponent of, if people don't know how to be great for you or take care of you or love you, they won't stay. Yeah. They won't find that they have a role actually in your life. Yeah. So when we're so super independent, that's a lack of vulnerability, and people will leave. I mean, it's really hard to hear, but as somebody who is super, I was a super independent person. And I think that as women, we're really encouraged, like, you and I are of like at least similar ages, right? And when we're growing up, we're like, women can do anything. We can, we can do anything. We can be anything. And that's wonderful. I'm so glad I'm part of that. But I think we've swung a little too far, because now we're so careful to not let anybody do anything for us that it's very hard for people to be in our life. Can you imagine like dating somebody who never needed you to do anything? They're like, okay, I'm gonna actually find somebody who wants to be loved, who wants to be taken care of. So I feel like I have a role here.
I love that you brought that up, because I feel like we have been brought up during this time to be so independent. I certainly got told, you don't need a man,
Right.
Don't rely on them for anything. So again, I didn't. And then I found myself not in a relationship doing it all myself. And I'm kind of like, this isn't not as much fun as it could be. Yeah, I could hold in this story of I'm okay and I like it and I like being single, but at the same time, I really enjoy being in a relationship. I enjoy showing love to someone and feeling it from someone else. I enjoy knowing what somebody's doing and they know what I'm doing. I mean, that's, I think, the best thing about my fiance and I is we want to know what each other's doing and be part of each other's life every day. It's pretty crazy, but I love that about it, right? And everyone has their own thing, right? Like, you might have your own, we do this together and foster kittens, but we just chat all the time, or we can be in each other's presence all day long. It's pretty crazy. But I like what you're saying, is that there is some room to maybe just relax that a bit. Is that right? Like, in terms
I'm just saying, really look at your vulnerability. If nobody knows how to love you or take care of you or be a part of your life, they will not stay. Period. And I mean, it's a really hard pill to swallow. As somebody who is like, oh, I got this. So like, not, there has to, like, what's the point if you're doing everything for yourself and then you guys just have random sex and watch Netflix, right? Like, that's not a relationship. You have to learn how to take care of each other. You have to learn how to love each other. And that looks different for everybody. So, I think that we have a lot of what I call intimate acquaintances, where we're dating somebody, we're sleeping with somebody, maybe you're staying over at their house like 50-60% of the time, but they don't know what you're struggling with, right? And they don't know what your insecurities are, and they don't know where you really need love and support, because you're so scared to tell them. And they're doing the same thing. So you guys both kind of live these little parallel lives, pretending that everything's okay, but you're not really a part of each other's lives.
Is that something that you share with someone before you get into a relationship? Because obviously I would think people want to go, well, I don't want to appear insecure or struggle, that I'm struggling. I want to
I
So
preach, you teach people how to treat you from day one, right? Now, I'm not saying first date, you're like, here's what I suck at, right? Like, I'm kind of crazy. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that.
yeah,
But what I do think is that as we get to know somebody, we start showing them, like, this is something I'm working on, or this is something, so my product is called the Owner's Manual. And I just believe that we all
yeah,
are different. And so it's our job to know how we work so we can teach somebody else how we work.
yeah,
Right? I think vulnerability is, for me, I mean, so Brene Brown is the queen of vulnerability,
hmm
but bringing it to the love and relationship realm has been really amazing, because I just think it's what's missing, because we have now so many independent women who are making damn good money, right? Have worked hard for their jobs, have
mm,
great friendships, maybe a great house or apartment or whatever. They travel and they meet people and they date, and then they're like, I don't know, I never feel like the connection just doesn't ever connect. And it's because we're not actually letting somebody in. And when we're not letting people in, that's also a level of emotional unavailability, right? If you're not willing to share where you're struggling, you're also being emotionally unavailable,
mm,
right? We're scared to show up as the actual real version of ourselves.
mm. Yeah. And I'm thinking like same thing with guys. Like if you're on a date and nobody wants anyone going, this is perfect and this is perfect and this is perfect and I'm doing this. And of course you don't want someone to be like, I have a drug problem, or we're not coming up with that stuff. But it's more like there's a difference when you say,
And I hope you don't have a drug problem. So it's
right,
something that's
exactly,
coming out
no,
later.
so I think it's when we say vulnerability, it's more just like, yeah, I'm working on this, or I always love seeing the whole like, hey, this is what I'm working on because I want to improve on this, but you're doing something about it. You're more just kind of bringing them into the point
Can
of
I
view.
tell you a good story
Yeah,
about myself? Yeah.
totally.
Because I think this is really, so, I mean, a couple places really early on that I was vulnerable with Danny that were important. So first of all, I am in an anxious attachment. I know you've got attached back there. I can see it.
Yeah,
I've got it right over here as well, about 4 books on attachment. So
yeah.
an anxious attacher, that means that I can like somebody, but because I get so nervous about it, like talk myself in or out of that relationship in about 4 seconds flat. Right. So if I'm not hearing from somebody in the way that I think I should hear from them, or in the
Mm,
timeline, then I'm like, I'm out, it's done, it's over. And then I hear from them, I'm like, okay, it's good. So, and the thing is, that puts us in such a weird, like, we're giving away so much control and so much power when we're in that space. So
mm,
within the first, like, probably 4 or 5 or 6 weeks that we were dating, and literally there was no one else to date in my hometown, so I was kind of like, I don't know, are we kind of doing this? We were kind of checking in with each other. And so I said, well, listen, I'm an anxious attachment style. You don't know what that means, and I'm happy to explain it to you, but because of that, when I don't hear from you for a couple of days, I think you don't like me anymore. And it's crazy because you can stand here one day and tell me you like me, and in
right.
2 days later, if I don't hear from you, I can, this is stuff that I'm working on, right? This is true to who I am. So
Right.
if I can hear from you every day, just a quick, hey, thinking of you, or hope you're having a great day, that keeps me and my brain calm, right? That keeps me in a space and place where I can keep showing up for this, where I'm not freaking myself out all the time. And I mean, I
Mhm,
took credit, like, this is my stuff. But the thing
mhm,
is we all have stuff. And so I'm
mhm.
like, so if you could, text me once a day, that would be great. And he's like, yeah, sure. Right. Like, that's not a hard ask,
Right.
but it was super vulnerable, but it
Yeah,
allowed me to actually show up for that relationship in a way I couldn't in the past,
yeah,
because I was so, like, dodging my thoughts in my head, right? Like, it had nothing really to do with the other person that much.
yeah.
So, I mean, that was one. Another one was, I was 41 when we met. Danny's a little bit younger than me. And we had to have the I'm not going to have kids conversation,
Mm,
right? That came up about 2 months in. I'm like, we're kind of doing this. And this is something we need to talk about. I'm 41 years old. These eggs, not so good at this point. I also have PCOS, so pregnancy is pretty tough.
mm,
And I legitimately have chosen to not have children. And
mm,
if that's something that you want, I totally get it. But I'm not going to be that person for you.
mm.
And that was super vulnerable. I started crying because I really liked him at that point. I was like, if that's what you decide, and I gave him some time to think about it. And we had a really, really long, good conversation about it. And now we're both like, kids, like, just like, I like them. Other people's kids, they go away.
Yeah,
But the thing is like, these vulnerable conversations are
yeah.
so important, because what would have happened if we would have dated in a year and a half, 2 years in, he
Mhm,
was like, I think I want kids,
mm,
you know,
yeah.
that that's a deal breaker, right? Like
Yeah.
that's shit you need to know.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
like, for me, vulnerability is not even just me putting my best foot forward, like I'm working on learning how to ski, which I'm not because
Right.
but it's more about like, this is stuff for me. And it's stuff I'm working on. And it's stuff that may not go away. But I'm going to tell you about it so that we can actually work together on making it great. And then how can I be great for you? Like,
Right.
what can I do for you?
And any good self-respecting partner would want to listen to your needs and
Absolutely.
fulfill them. So what I'm also hearing though is not the vulnerability as well, but also boundaries. And this was something I did want to talk with you because we haven't spoken about it yet really on the summit. I think it's so important.
So important.
Do we even know what they are? Do we even understand them? Like it's going to be like the new word, I think, of 2020. It's vulnerability. Now it's going to be boundaries. I'm just calling it right now, but
I agree. And I call these words Oprah-fied words. Now, let me tell you, I'm all for Oprah 2020 and like Oprah and Brene Brown. That's my presidential like perfection.
that's my party.
But they're words that like everybody knows, but not really,
Right.
they don't really understand what they mean, or they certainly don't know how to apply them. Right. So everybody's like boundaries, boundaries, boundaries. And then I sit down and people are like, and I have a whole module on boundaries, and then, and it's later in the modules and they're like, oh, fuck, I have no boundaries, right? Like I totally thought I had boundaries. I mean, the way that I look at boundaries, or the really, short version, is what's okay with you and what's not okay with you. Right? Like that's the very, like, I think that's kind of Brene. You teaching people like, what's okay and what's not okay. Another way that I like to say this is when we say something that shuts people out, that's a wall. When we say something that moves the relationship forward, it's a boundary. Right? So one, we want to stop them. The other is like, I'm telling you this because I want to move this relationship forward. And if I don't tell you, it's going to eat me up. Or I'm going to like sabotage this relationship because of it, right? Or like different things that happen when we aren't true to ourselves.
Yeah. And if I'm thinking about why we are not good at boundaries, does it still come back to that self-worth?
Always.
Always.
Because we're so scared to speak up that we might say or do something that then people will leave. Right? So if I tell somebody, hey, I'd really like to wait to have sex because when I have sex early in a relationship, it kind of clouds my judgment and I make really piss poor choices and things like that. If we say that, we're so scared that somebody's going to be like, fuck, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, or I'll just find somebody better. And the thing is like,
good.
The problem with internet dating is it's let us believe that we have all of these choices, unending choices. Like, oh, if this one doesn't fit, next one will happen, blah, blah, blah. And we don't, we never now just commit and go, let's dig in together. Let's figure out if we can make something work here. And so, so if you can't show up and tell people what's okay and what's not okay, then that's self-worth.
Yeah.
Right? We're scared people will leave. We're fear of abandonment, fear of being lonely, fear, like lots of different fears.
The fears. Yes. We
All the fears.
had on one of your podcasts, obviously, and I think I said this to someone the other day. He said the same thing. He said, I have a fear of abandonment and a fear of rejection. And I basically said, okay, well, until you actually heal those, you're going to be operating from a place of fear. Absolutely. And what happens when people do that?
This is what I say. Nothing that starts in fear ends in love. Right? Sure is really hard to build a relationship based on fear of loneliness and rejection and all of these things and think that somehow that's going to now turn into love. Right? No, you're just going to spend time together just trying to not like get hurt.
Right. Or, to alleviate those fears. It's kind of like Band-Aids, right?
Right. But you don't, just because somebody's next to you doesn't mean you're not lonely. Just because somebody's with you doesn't mean that you don't feel rejected on a daily basis. Right. Like for some reason, one of the other parts of this culture that lies, my conspiracy, is that we think that when people are in relationships or married, they're happy. I know tons of people in relationships and married who aren't even happy. I even had a coach friend recently. I did an interview like this, and she's been married like 25 years. And she's like, I think we have a great marriage, but I just heard you describe your marriage with your husband and we've got some work to do. Right. Like, she's like, we're not there. We're not where you're at. Right. Like we're okay. Like we're good. We like each other and we travel together and, but I think that we make this assumption that if people are in a relationship, like they've got it figured out.
Yeah.
What I truly believe is that most of us don't have it figured out, and that, you know, this is work for all of us.
Yeah. And I believe that we've been saying this before, and my big epiphany through this whole show is that when we are with somebody, that's when we really get to catapult the learning about ourselves. So it's almost like,
Yeah,
like
if you're
you
really
said,
doing this, yeah, if you're really doing this, it's hard.
yeah. And
Right?
that's when they say relationships work, because you got to work on yourself to make sure, and they do too, to make sure that it stays in a healthy, very sense. No one's having to go at each other or
Right.
say nasty things because you're upset about something. Because a lot of times we'll start to get angry, and I'm like, okay, what's pissing me off right now? What is
Yeah.
pissing me
What's
off
this really
right
about?
now? So that's where I'm like, get into a relationship, start learning about yourself, commit to someone who has those, deal breakers and what you want and what you're looking for, that you can form, and just learn and grow together and go through this adventurous life together. Right.
I mean, my hope is that I try to work with singles so they've got some of this foundation before they get into the relationship.
Yeah.
Right. And the thing is like, like I said, if you're doing this right, if you're actually showing up, if you're actually setting boundaries, if you're actually being vulnerable, if you're doing all of those things, you learn very quickly about yourself. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Not until I started dating Danny did I notice things that I just thought were, you know what I mean? Like I've just accepted. Right. And then I'm like, oh God, do I do that? I guess I do that. I mean, it's relationships. I think we think it's, going to complete us. And really it's the greatest way we can learn about ourselves. Because all of a sudden you have somebody holding a mirror up to you who's spending all day, every day with you, showing you the good and not so good stuff.
Yeah. And that's where, again, like, I love that you said early on, like, you go through stuff each day. Like, we probably have a good little kind of tiff sometimes every week, because, something's all the stuff outside work and, maybe wedding planning or whatever are coming up. And then you're always in each other's kind of space, and, but the skill comes in from when you can, again, work through it, understand where it's coming from, understand that it's not the other person. Because I always was like, oh yeah, it's them. Nothing's wrong with me. That whole thing.
I mean, that's perfect. Aren't you? Like, yeah.
Well,
no, I mean,
that was a hard way to live. Like, yeah.
Well, it's a way that's not going to do anything for us, right? Like if we're in the space of just like, they need to get their shit figured out. Why are you with them if they need to get their shit figured out? Or, or is it something you both need to figure out? Yeah. Right. So as soon as anything starts coming up in our relationship, I'm like, okay, stop, or he'll stop it. Cause he is probably naturally better at relationships than I am. Yeah. And this is what I talk about all day, every day, but he's really talented at it. And we'll be like, okay, what's going on here? What's this really about? What are we really feeling? Like, we don't usually ever get to the fight phase, right? Because we're talking it out first. Right. Like, and we've just learned how to do that over time and with skills, Yeah. And it's pretty special when you can do that, because we don't usually get to a place of, I don't know the last time one of us shouted at each other. I'm not saying occasionally one of us doesn't make a passive aggressive statement. Right. But like, like
they're going to be throwing something or passive aggressive. It's one or the other.
Right. And then we call each other out on it. I'm like, or he's like, really? And I'm like, all right, okay. I always instantly calm down, because this is the most important relationship of my life. I want this to feel good for both of us every single day. Because if it doesn't, what's the fucking point? Exactly. I'll live with a bunch of cats. I like cats. It's good. Cat lady is not a negative in my, in my world.
Totally. What's wrong?
Right. Exactly. Cat hair is the new glitter. So,
Oh my God. This is just, as we know, the tip of the iceberg, but hopefully we have given you some amazing content so far. You are amazing. I love what you do in terms of helping those singles from the beginning. So that way, once we're getting into a relationship, we know who to look for. We know more about ourselves. We have the self-worth, so we can set boundaries. And that's what's going to lead to, when you're in that relationship and these triggers are going to come up, you can handle it, and you're not going to run away or go cheat on someone or do anything or complain to your girlfriend. You're going to approach it with that person because you care about each other, and you're so fortunate and happy to have each other. Wow, I love that. That was great. That was just a good little summary. But please let everyone know how they can learn more from you, because I love the content you put out. It's so straightforward. You are a no bullshitter, which I love.
I am not.
Call it what it is. You admit that you went through your shit, but you got there, so we can all help each other through it. So please let them know how they can learn more from you.
Sure. So my business is called League of Adventurous Singles. So it's leagueofadventuroussingles.com. I also have the League of Adventurous Singles podcast, or LOAS podcast. And I have a great freebie called Why You Are Single as Fuck and What to Do About It. It's an audiobook. It's about 45 minutes long, but it's good. You can listen to it. And you can get that over on my site. But yeah, I'm kind of lots of places, because I'm trying to, with you, with people like you, Andrea, preach the fucking truth for once, right? Preach for let's have real relationships instead of this fake shit that doesn't get us anywhere, and then we feel like crap all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was the best thing about the self-worth issue that I was having, was that not only did it change my love relationships, it changed my life. Like, I can handle shit my mom tells me now. I can see what other people are doing, and it's like I can just walk around so much lighter.
Yes.
And I don't feel like, how they feel like there's a solid tree, and like one gust of wind will come by, and if you don't have that solid foundation, you're just going to tip over. But now it's like anything can come at me, and I'm just like, it's all good. And it feels so good to be that kind of, I don't want to say stable, but like just grounded, and it's amazing. So, but it's just coming all
liking myself enough, right? Liking yourself enough that shit doesn't take you down every day.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I know. And it's like you said, back to that whole circle of, only what's outside makes us 10% happier. But at the same time, if we make sure that all that stuff outside of us doesn't impact us the way it doesn't have to, is what we're saying. Like, it doesn't. And it feels amazing. So work with a coach, because it is hard for us to do on our own, isn't it?
Fuck. You can't do this shit on your own. I can't do this shit on my own. I have my own coaches. I have my own therapist.
Yeah.
This is a major change. You are unlearning tons of information. You are unlearning usually kind of like bad shit you learned from your parents and poor things from past relationships. We are like unlearning a ton, and then building skills. You can't do that by yourself. It's, my clients will be the first to say, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. It's the best thing I've ever done, but it's the hardest. And like what you say is, I love to say is like, not only is this work, it's chocolate covered kale. I bring them in for the relationships or the dating, but then we work on them. And I'm like, you will just move through this world in a better way. Right? Like exactly what you said. You're like, I feel lighter, right? Work, coworkers and your boss don't feel as bad. Dating doesn't feel as hard because you don't take everything so fucking personally.
Yeah.
It's just, when you like yourself, when you've built those skills, it just gets better. Why wouldn't we do better at this point?
I love how you said this before, like how there's not a class said how you love learning your attachment style and cultivating your self-worth and self-compassion. Like, if only there was a class about that. Not like we might even be able to take it in at that time, because you'd be like, yeah, whatever. But it's true. It's just, these skills are hard to learn. It's so confronting after we've built this image and belief system to this point. We think we got our shit together. We've got it in every other area because we learn, but we don't have it in this area because we never learned it. So let's learn it. It's worth it.
Yeah. Let's stop putting ourselves down because we just don't know things.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, and then we just beat ourselves up all the time. And that's the type of people that you're going to attract when you're beating yourself up all the time, is not the type of people that are going to create great relationships with you.
Yeah. Best part is we know why this is happening and we can help you. So hopefully this was helpful today. I loved it. This was amazing. Thank you so much, Kira, for being
it's so much fun.
Part of this mission to help everyone find love, but also create love and, love themselves more than they ever have. So thank you. Till next time, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.